Well, again, a very warm welcome to all of you. So I think people might be still dropping in, and this is really great that we're having this webinar today. So the WAPES and the World of Public Employment Services webinar, where we will explore today the Austrian labor market and the role of AMS, as this is the name of the public employment service in Austria. And my name is Nicole Clovis. I'll be the moderator for today, and I've been seconded from the Bundesagentur für Arbeit, from the German Public Employment Service, to the WAVE Secretariat since March last year. I am also assisted by my colleague. He will support us with questions and sending us and displaying the slides. Ulf Norman from Arbeitsvermittlung, the Swedish PES. And so we will have today at least until we have a presentation of an hour, so until 2 o'clock Central European time. So we have interpretation in Spanish and French. If you look into the little globe down there, so you can adjust the language in the interpretation button. So we are also recording this, and it will be available also on our website shortly. So everything will be there for those that cannot attend today. So please spread the word to those people that you know and that might want to watch it later. So you also can see that your microphones are muted and that the cameras are taken off. So but if you have questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat, so we can also take them later and ask our presenter Julian for today all these important questions that you might have. Maybe you can already go to the next slide, Ulf. If it's possible. Yes, perfect. So this one explains a little bit more about the procedure for today. So and then questions that cannot be answered today, if we might not have the time, we will collect them and send them later to you in written form, answered by our presenter today. But now I would like to move to our speaker of today, which we are very honored to have here, Mr. Julian Hiebel, who coordinates international relations at the Austrian Public Employment Service. He has a master's in political sciences and history from the University of Vienna. Before joining the AMS, he has been working in the Austrian Ministry of Labor for more than 15 years and was seconded also to the European Commission as a national expert. Without any further ado, I would love to give the word to you, Julian, for your presentation.
So thank you, Nicole, for introducing your colleagues. I was already introduced. I will, however, do this a second time. Good afternoon. My name is Julian Hiebel. I'm international coordinator at AMS for the international relations, and I'm happy to share a good hour with you together, introducing a little bit our institution to you. I have a presentation, of course, and I will try to share the screen. I hope I will manage this. Please, Nicole, let me know whether you see the presentation.
Yes, I can see it. It's perfect.
Okay, so then let me start by introducing a little bit some details on our country, Austria. You can see here on the slide some details. We are now, as of last year, 9 million inhabitants. When I was in school 30 years ago, we still learned that we are 8 million. So you can see there is an enormous increase in the population. Vienna is by far the biggest capital, the biggest city. It's the capital in Austria, with about 2 million now. I already mentioned a huge increase in the demography, out of which 97% is due to migration inflows in Austria. The current economic situation is a little bit tenser than 2 years ago after the pandemic. You can see here on the top right, the increase in the GDP is this year predicted to be very slow increase, or hardly any increase, 0.3%. Next year it's said to be better. But as you know, the predictions, they can vary each quarter. Labor market indicators, people working part-time here, I mentioned, quite a high percentage, 28%, but out of these 80% women working part-time in Austria, which is of course due to a very still conservative structure with regards to childcare obligation and care obligation in general. The economic sectors, a bit still agriculture, decreasing, of course, industry, decreasing. Again, back in school, I learned it's a bit 33%, and we are now standing 26% and 70%. Services. I have also given you here the educational level, and here you can see the development. When you look at the blue line, this is the secondary school has increased and is now stabilized, and you can see the red line, which is said to be those of the compulsory school, which is aged 15 in Austria, is decreasing now, and then rather sharp increase in the tertiary sector. So university in the 70s only 3%, and 2020 already 21%. If you look at the current labor market figures, you can see that out of these 9 million inhabitants, we have a workforce or labor market potential of 4.2 million, out of which almost 4 million are working. 500,000 is self-employed, and the current unemployment rate that you see at the bottom is at 6.8%, which is our national register data. When you look at the Eurostat data, we stand at about 4.9%. You know the difference of these two systems, and I can see the 6.8 is those who are registered with us in the public employment service. You can see in these figures also the current situation at the labor market, an increase in the unemployment figure as compared to the last year, and a decrease in the open vacancies of almost 19%, so 18.4%, which are the two corresponding figures that indicate a little bit the situation at the labor market. So at the moment, a bit of worsening situation, whereas last year compared to last year, we had quite a favorable position still at the labor market. The biggest increases in the unemployment figures are people with foreign nationals, so with a migrational background, especially those who have under subsidiary protection and entitled asylum. When we look now at the AMS Austria, I need to say beforehand that we have been founded in 1994. 1994 was the date when we have been outsourced of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor Market. Before we were part of this ministry and were very much an administrative body. And in 94 we became an independent body, like a government agency, but with a bit more far-reaching autonomy than a simple agency of the government. And when you see at this slide here, we have a kind of threefold structure. Bottom on the top left, you can see the federal organization. That's the organization that I work in, and this organization is headed by a so-called administrative council. And this council comprises representatives from three parties, which is the government, which you can see on the right side in the red field, which are representatives of the Federal Ministry of Labor and the Federal Ministry of Finance, and then two other representatives, both from the social partners, so from the trade unions or employees representatives, and the employers representatives. And this administrative council is the council that meets once or twice a month, and is this the body in our institution that takes the most of the strategic decision. Beyond, on number 2, you see the executive board. This is the board of the directors with 2 director generals. And then number 3, you see the federal office. So this is basically the office that I'm working in. So this is the support body, the administrative support structure of the federal organization. And we here in the federal office around 200 people. This very similar situation occurs in the regional organizations. Austria is a country that is divided into 9 regions. And again, we have a regional directorate. And in this regional directorate, we have representatives from the regional governments and from the social partners. So again, employers representatives and employees representatives. We have a regional directors, again, 2 of them, and then we have the regional offices. And the federal level and the regional level is the strategic level. So the organizations are very similar to ministries. And then At the bottom, you can see 100 local organizations. And these are the organizations that are the job centers. So here we service our customers, basically. And again, these are organized very similar to the regional and to the federal organization. We have a local advisory council with the representatives of the social partners and the government. We have local directors, so these are the head of the job centers. And then we have the job centers as such with the administrative background. All in all, we are in AMS Austria around 6,500 staff, which equals in full-term equivalent 5,400 to 5,500 staff. So, okay. What are the tasks and the objectives of our labor market policy? So, according to the Labor Market Service Act, which is the main legal source of the AMS, we have two main tasks, which is preventing and eliminating the unemployment, or contributing to the preventing and eliminating unemployment. And we have the task to support bringing together labor market supply and demand. I think that's very much similar to your obligations. In terms of the task per se, we have a tripartite task structure, I would say, which is basically the active labor market policy that we are responsible for. And these we differentiate into counseling, mediation services, and providing qualification for job seekers and supporting employers, of course. We are responsible for the passive labor market policy, which is mainly the administration of the unemployment benefits, which is in-house. Many other public employment services have not this task, but we have both these tasks in our house. And then we have also a regulatory obligation policy, which is the admission of foreign workers into the labor market. So the recruitment, or not the recruitment per se, but the admission of third country nationals. And here we act as an authority. When you look at the financial distribution, or the distribution of the financial resources at AMS, you can see this threefold structure on this slide. So with regards to the passive labor market policies, the AMS acts as a public authority because there is an obligation and people have the right to receive the employment benefits since they have paid into the insurance fund. And then we have active labor market policy, which is different because there is no right for people to receive or to participate in labor market policies as such. And there we implement special programs of our Ministry of Labor and Economy, and we contribute with our ALMPs to the implementation of the labor market policy goals that we decide once a year in the Administrative Council. We call this the delegated area of activity, since these are the tasks that we are how can I say, we are charged to do this by the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Finance. And on the right side, you can see in the green rectangular, this is basically our administrative cost that we administer on our own, and this is what we call the own area of activity or responsibility. As regards the budget, I can try to show you now the concrete figures, and I took the budget of 22 since 23 is now being revised to be put in our annual report. But let's take 22, which is very similar actually to 23. You can see at the bottom a total budget of almost 10 billion. And out of these 10 billion, so this is the whole, I would say, budget that the Ministry of Finances provides or reserves for labor market policy in Austria. And out of these, you can see the three most important parts of it. And in 22, we paid more than 4 billion euros to unemployment benefits. For active labor market policy, again, which is mainly qualification training measures, 1.6 billion. And the administration for the AMS accounted for 640 million euros. When you sum these three parts now up, you will not come to 9.6 billion. The reason for this that there is a lot of other costs, for example, reimbursement to social insurance or security, which I did not list here, but these three are the most important parts of it. And in 22, so 2 years, or in 2020, we had on top, due to the Corona crisis, about 4 billion in a short-time work arrangement. But this budget, as it is here now, is a more stable budget, which is, I would say, a typical budget for an annual budget of our public employment service. I have tried to list it here on this slide, some current topics and challenges for AMS, which will be very similar, I guess, to most of you. We are in a critical year, or an interesting year, let's call it, because we have national elections end of September this year. So everything is a bit uncertain. And we are now discussing already the budget for 25. And since we are in this election year, this can be a bit prolonged, the discussions, I would say. On the other hand, we are waiting with a more tense labor market, maybe some political programs to be implemented, one of which could be, for example, a qualification offensive. And then we are still waiting, or we waited, especially last year, on some proposal from the politicians on the simplification of our main legal acts, which is the Unemployment Benefits Act and the Labor Market Service Act, so the act on the legal basis of the AMS as such. But so far, we have not seen or received any proposals on these. With regards to our own topics or challenges, we are currently working, as many of you, I would guess, on an AI strategy. It's something new for us. We have just recently introduced the first tools on AI, and we would like to pour all our knowledge now in a strategy and discuss this with our partner organizations on where we are heading to. All in all, this will feed into the IT modernization. We have just a few years ago started with an intense IT roadmap with a lot of new tools and programs that we have introduced. We have 5 years ago switched to a new IT provider because our former IT provider was not, or it was not a success story for us to work with this. And so there is a lot of programs that were in the pipeline and we can now issue. We are also working on a new social media presence of AMS. This was so far um, a an aspect of AMS that was not really strategically regulated. Our, I would say, CEO and our board members, they were active on social media, but there was no overarching AMS social media strategy, and we are about to implement one by the end of this year. And we are working also on the employer branding of AMS Austria. With regards to operational topics, we are eager to increase our capacities in the faster integration of refugees with a special budget that we have been provided with. And we are now working for the first time of an intra-AMS sustainability, a project where we screen our, let's say, green footprint and try to reduce carbon emissions. Let's come to the target groups of AMS, something that might be very similar in your institutions. So we have two customer groups, the job seekers on the one hand, and of course, nothing surprising, the unemployed, with a focus on young people, women, long-term unemployed, people with disabilities, and people with a migrant background. But we not only service unemployed people, more and more we service also employees who are looking to change the job, and employees who are at risk of becoming unemployed. And here we work together with employers to support a sustainable integration or continuation in their jobs, um, their employment relation they are in. We are supporting young people looking for an apprenticeship in case they are not able to find an apprenticeship in a company. People returning to work, that's especially after parental leave. We have special counselors in some of our offices to support mothers and fathers in this difficult situation. And since 2010, we had a national reform of our social benefits system. Social benefits are provided in Austria by the municipalities and not by a federal institution. And until 2010, recipients of social benefits were not obliged to register with the public employment services. And this changed with the national reform in 2010. And as of 2010, these are now obliged to register with the Public Employment Service, and we have an obligation to also support them and provide them with services. Next to the job seekers, we are more and more working also with employers. One of which is providing temporary work, not short-term work arrangements, sorry, in case companies find themselves in a temporarily difficult situation. 2020, 2021 was the year of the corona pandemic, and the Public Employment Service was charged by the government to execute the temporary work, short-term work arrangements. And in the top time, we had about 1.4 million workers or employees in this scheme, and it was the EMS that was in charge of administering this short-term work arrangement. We also support employers that want to invest in qualification of their employees. This started some 15 years ago, maybe with money of the European Social Fund, and it has since then been continuously established as one part of qualification programs next to the qualification of unemployed people. We are also issuing and supporting companies that are willing to hire and train hard to place employees with wage subsidies. And we have also a subsidy for employers or a support structure in case they take on board apprentices. How do we work? Usually our work is clustered into three processes. We call them core processes. The first core process is the core process supporting job seekers. We call this Service for Arbeitssuchende, so service for job seekers. And this is by far, of course, the largest and most extensively staffed core process. The second core process that is defined is supporting employers, which is called the Service für Unternehmen in German. And the core process 3 is our third obligation. It's providing information on the developments on the labor market and of the world of work. If I may jump now into the core process 1, we have developed since several years and are now implementing as of July 2024 a new organizational model. Since then, we had the so-called three-zone model, which meant that from a customer's perspective, a job seeker came into an office in job center, and he or she was first placed into an information zone where he or she got basic information on registration for unemployment and job searching and vacancy notes, screening and CV writing. There, he or she, the customer, stayed several weeks, and then, if not, he or she found a job, he or she was transferred into a service zone. And there, a bit more in-depth services were provided, and if no success in placement or job searching was done here, he or she was transferred into the counseling zone, which was a more in-depth support zone. And this model was replaced by now a two-zone model that we are rolling out. And we now do not differentiate in these three zones, but in a two-zone model, which is the primary or initial service zone, and then the job service, which means we have skipped one of these zones. Why? Because we do not want that the customer loses, in fact, too much time in one of these three zones. But from day one, we want to issue information and we want to start searching a job. And so far, the response rate in our job centers was very positive in this, on that regard. And as I said, as of July, we will have this zone model now implemented in all job centers Austrian-wide. Core process 2, which is service for employers, is basically recruiting and job placement support for employers to support bringing together supply and demand. Employers also receive information and support with regards to ALMPs. So those ALMPs, especially that support companies and employers with labor market subsidies. And we support companies in the employment of foreigners, since most of these are through the employers themselves that request third country nationals. With regards to the core process 3, which is providing information and career orientation for job seekers, employers, and the public. We can divide into two sub-processes. The first process is informing and advising customers, so again, job seekers and employers, and other interested individuals or groups, for example, school classes, which come in one of our 33 or 30, no, 33 career centers. They are mostly part of the of job centers as such, and we welcome everybody is free of charge to come here and get information, testings, and so on in one of these career centers. And the sub-process two is informing stakeholders and the public about labor market data, statistics, reports or studies. Okay, some information on the unemployment development rate between 1990 and 23. You can see here both blue and red columns. The blue one is for male and the red one is for the female. It was still in the 90s when we were talking about full employment. Full employment was meant to be an unemployment rate of 3%. And you can see over the years that the unemployment rate increased gradually, but still very stable and no big outbreaks here. Then in 2008 and 2009, it increased a little bit. This was due to the financial crisis, but not a big increase. Then again, a slight increase. And then 2015 and 2016 with the refugee crisis, again, an increase, which then subsequently decreased back to the former previous level. And then in 22, 21, a significant increase due to Corona. However, due to the short-time work arrangement that we provided in Austria, which I already mentioned, 1.2 million people working short-time and therefore retaining their jobs, rather stable. And then subsequently decreasing unemployment rate. And since last year, unfortunately, a little increase of the unemployment figures again. Let's stick a little bit to the unemployment. That's my most preferred slide. And this is the slide when somebody asks you why AMS is here and why AMS matters. I'm always showing this slide. On this slide, you can see the unemployment risk rates by educational qualification. And you can see three lines here. The first one is the line, the green line, which is universities or tertiary education, and the unemployment rate of people having a certificate. And you can see in the 1990s a risk of or unemployment rate of 2.1%, and over the years a very stable development of this unemployment rate, and we are now standing at 2.5. So 30 years later, a very similar unemployment rate and a very good unemployment outlook for people that having had university. The next one is the blue line a bit above. That's the one with A level, so secondary education. And you can see a very similar development. We started 1990 with an unemployment rate of 3%, and nowadays we are 5.1. So a little increase, but still very stable and very good labor market perspective of people holding a degree of the secondary school. And then we have the yellow line, and the yellow line is apprenticeship. This is very traditional in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. So people at the age 15, if they do not want to continue school, they can go for an apprenticeship in a company. And after 3 years, they get a skilled workers certificate. And again, you can see in the 90s, 4.5 unemployment rates, and then 22 unemployment rate of 5.5. So again, very stable. And this also shows once you have a formal certificate in Austria, your labor market perspective is rather positive. And I will now add another layer or another line, which will be a red line. And this is the unemployment risk or the unemployment rate of those who have only compulsory school, so which have no subsequent qualification training courses whatsoever done and no certificate. And you can see in the 1990s, 9.5%, already relatively high. But then over 30 years, we are now at 0.4%, and you can see even in the year 2020 or 21, we are 27, 28%. So a very conservative structure still in Austria. And again, once you have a certificate, your labor market situation is quite positive. If you do not have a certificate or skilled worker certificate or an academic record, your risk of becoming unemployed and of course your risk of having fragmented careers is quite high. And these, of course, people on this red curve or red line are our customers. And what do we do with these customers? Let's switch to the active labor market policy measures then. We differentiate into three categories of ALMPs, which is qualification, employment support, and support measures. And if we go now to the qualification measures, so the first category, we are ourselves not providing trainings as an institution, but we are outsourcing. So which means we are issuing public tender and we are then paying for huge quantities of training places with training providers. And there we then refer our clients, so our customers, our job seekers to these qualification courses. But we also support people that are interested in more specific training, more individualized training programs that we have not on our list with training providers that we outsourced. Then we can also pay individual training course costs that arise from these training courses. Our primary target group are young people which have not found an apprenticeship. Some information in some minutes. Women, people with disabilities, long-term unemployed, and people at risk of becoming long-term unemployed. Once people are in a qualification measure, they receive financial support. If they are entitled to unemployment benefits, they receive or they continue to receive unemployment benefits, even sometimes for a longer duration, or they get an allowance to cover their living expenses, which is approximately the same height of an average unemployment benefit rate, I would say. Some examples. So the first one is we call it super company-based apprenticeship training. It's for people that are aged under 25, and it's basically for young people that have not found an apprenticeship in a company, or that have once started in a company with an apprenticeship but have dropped out, and they would like to redo this now. Every year we have around 100,000 people stopping or their compulsory school. Compulsory school in Austria ends at the age of 15 after 9 years of individual school years. And we have since 10 years around a law that says that every person until the age of 18 needs to be either in school or in education. And out of these 100,000 each year that end compulsory school, around 50% continue to go to secondary school, and 40% start an apprenticeship within a company. So these together amounts up to 90%, and 10% of these young people are either not willing to continue a school, or they have not found an apprenticeship place in a company, and that's the reason why we support them in a super-based apprenticeship training. What is this about? This is basically a workshop that we finance, so the whole infrastructure and trainers, and the young people can do there the very similar apprenticeship that they do in a company, which means they work in the workshop, or they train in the workshop with trainers. And then once a day or blocked 1 week in a month, they go to a special school. That's why we call it dual system. It's workplace related training and it's visiting school. Usually an apprenticeship in Austria lasts 3 to even 4 years. And in our training courses, the young kids can either do the full course of 3 years, or there is also some models where they start doing this with the overall objective to be afterwards placed in a company based training, so outsourced into a regular apprenticeship, we would say. The challenge, you can think maybe there's a high dropout rate. we lose about 25 to 30% of these young kids. Um, some of them already at the beginning, not so many during, but again, many that have then tried to take the final exam. They did not manage to have a positive result at the final exam, and then we lose them. And therefore, we have special courses to get them back and get some courses to retrain, and with the aim of having the final exam. And now, when you recall the slides that I showed you with the unemployment risk, you will understand how important it is now that they get this certificate with regards to the labor market perspective. Um, One thing that I would like to add before I close on this slide, once they have done the 3 years or even 4 years in one of our workshops, they have to do exactly or take the exact same exam as regular apprentices. So those who work in a company, this is done by the Chamber of Commerce, which means once they have the certificate, it's exactly the same certificate from a legal point of view as those who have taken the regular, the company-based apprenticeship. And we know from studies and surveys that future employers judge the quality of the skilled labor force that has done the apprenticeship in our courses very similar or hardly any differences with those who have done the apprenticeship in a company. So this is for people aged minor than 25, but what's with those who are a bit older? Um, for the target group of the low skilled unemployed, this can be, for example, people aged 30, 35 that have started with an apprenticeship, they have never finished the apprenticeship, never taken the exam, but they have then started to work as an unqualified worker. We offer what we call a skilled labor intense training in a modular form. So if such a person comes to our office and he or she has worked as a welder, but an unqualified welder, we put together a very modular qualification and training course for these people. We make a certain like gap analysis, what is missing, and we then train them in modular courses, 1 or 2 years, with the aim or the objective that these also have then a regular apprenticeship certificate. We do this in an outsourced form. Again, here we finance workshops, infrastructures as a whole. That's big qualification centers, and we do this with many, many thousand people a year. Um, all in all, what I forgot to say maybe that we have around 35 to 40 ALMP measures in our portfolio that we provide to job seekers. The next category to qualification courses is employment promotion. I have 3 examples listed here. The first one is the socioeconomic enterprises that I will go a bit more in detail in a minute. Second one is typically integration allowance or wage subsidies, and there we pay for social insurance contribution and parts of the wages for long-time unemployed people in case they are placed with an employer, and we compensate the employer for taking this person on board. And then already mentioned the short-time work allowance with a special focus on the Corona crisis, where we try to issue these job retention schemes that people are not getting becoming as a customer, but they can stay in the company they work for. The example of social economic enterprises may be interesting for you. We call this the second labor market. Second labor market means there must be also a first, or we call it regular labor market. This is for people that are long-term unemployed or have hard to place people which have some characteristics of, for example, poor social skills, prison sentence, debts, or drug addictions, um, and which are not able to find a job at the regular labor market due to reduced work capacity. And we provide these people with the possibility in a certain kind of sheltered employment. Again, we are financing here whole infrastructures of that's basically qualification training, work-related training, um, to allow people to softly introduce again into the labor market with the objective that after a certain period, maybe 6 months or 12 months, they can be placed in the regular labor market. Just to give you a quick example how this could look like, think of a restaurant. And when you go into a restaurant, it looks like a very standard normal restaurant. But when you order your food or when you look into the kitchen, you will see that there's people working with a reduced work capacity, and there is trainers, cooks, or waiters and servants that act as trainers. And people with this reduced work capacity have here the possibility to work at a lower pace, I would say. These social economic enterprises, they act like small businesses. We finance them, but since they operate in the open market, 20% of their expenses must be borne by themselves. And some of these have also the option of labor leasing, which is temporary work arrangements. The last one of the ALMPs is the support services. And here the most important is the intense counseling. We provide job seekers with labor market counseling, but we have many customers that are in need of more intense counseling and more in-depth counseling. For example, they need to have take courses in how to write a CV, how to screen vacancies, how to do in training and interviews. And for this reason, we outsource business consultants or consultancies to support and help our customers with more intense counseling that our counselors themselves have not enough and sufficient time resources to provide. Obviously, this serves to reduce placement barriers, problems with certain target groups, and help with access to vocational education and training, because one part of this intense counseling is also the assessment of the work capacity in a certain sense, whether it makes sense or not to do a subsequent training. Okay, and I think this is my very last slide. You have an overview of the ALMPs. I already mentioned we have around 40 measures in our portfolio, and you can see that all subsidies together in 1 year, we have around 420,000 persons a year in a training, most of which are either qualification courses. You can see 261,000 people in the qualification courses, and 220, almost 23,000 in the support services. This, what I said, this intense counseling of CV writing and so on, and employment subsidies, above all this work integration allowances, almost 75,000. You can see here in the changes compared to the previous year, that there is a large decrease overall. When we see where the decrease happened, then you can see this is clearly the short-time work allowance. I already mentioned in 2021, 22, we had the Corona crisis, and you can see a decrease of 99%. So this means the economy is getting much better, or got much better in 23, and we stopped the short-term work arrangement, and therefore you have this kind of distortion here in this overview. But again, when you look at the number of the column number of persons, you can see a very, I would say, average year that will be showing the same picture in the years to come. And I think this was my very last slide. We are just in time, 15 minutes questions. Many thanks, and I'm looking forward to your questions now.
Many thanks, Julian, also for all this great data on the labor market in Austria. And also I understood that this was going back towards the 90s until to today, so which gave a great overview on also the development of the labor market, and also the dual system was very well explained. I understood this was kind of really interesting, since this is also something that I was very interested in, the apprenticeship system and the skilling measures that you take in Austria. So I see that we have a duplicated somehow screen. Maybe if you can take off your shut down your screen sharing, Julian. Perfect, wonderful. So, and I've seen that we have quite a couple of questions in the chat, and asking to my colleague Ulf, since he was the one also collecting all of these wonderful questions that you have been asking in the chat. And Ulf, do we have some questions for Julian?
Yes, thank you very much, Nicole, and thank you, Julian, for a very interesting presentation. We have received quite some questions, and the first one is, what exact role does AMS have for labor market immigration from third country? Do you make the decision or provide information to an immigration authority?
Both. I mean, we are not the institution in Austria that is recruiting or that is supporting recruitment of a third country national. This was a decision by the government to be handed over to a other authority, which is called the Austrian Business Agency, which is an agency of the government, and which is also supporting employers. However, we have this skilled workers recruitment path, which is called the red, white, red card, which is basically a type of a blue card. And this is open for very skilled labor, so IT specialists, for example, and those who are indicated on the list of shortages from which is issued on an annual basis from the Ministry of Economy. And here we get a request. So a person in a third country is issuing a request to the authority of future residents, and this authority is then providing us with the information. We provide them with an expert opinion whether this person meets the criteria to be then awarded this red, white, red card, which is 24 months or 2 years, limited first instance, and then the procedure is with the authorities, with the migration authorities. But so far, a rather limited, I would say, task for the Public Employment Service.
Okay. Another question: are there any specialized programs designed for refugees?
Yes, I mean, most of which are, of course, language courses. We are doing some of them by ourselves, but again, there is another institution which is called the Austrian Integration Fund, and this is also working together with us on providing these courses. And then we have in Vienna, we have a special counter for refugees with special information to be provided for this group of people. Yeah. But other than this, once they have been granted asylum, we provide the awful lot, I would say, of our portfolio of ALMPs to these people.
Okay. And does the AMS offer specific training to help young people acquire vocational skills that are better suited to the needs of the labor market?
We had many years, I would say decades of discussion, where we said, well, basically, we are the institution that provides either placement support or training for those who are already able to work. With young kids, it can be, and it is much more the situation now, that they lack a basic training. So literacy and calculation, mathematics, and so on. And therefore, we have also an additional institution, which is called the Social Ministry Service, which is an agency of the Social Ministry, which was initially there for people with disabilities, but has more and more developed now also in an institution to support those who are super hard to place. And they have these basic training courses, which we were providing also in the past, but there has now been a certain dismantling process, and said we are the institution that helps placing people when they are ready and fit for the labor market, and the other institution is those who provides them with the basic knowledge. Of course, this is not always crystal clear. We also have in our portfolio this kind of courses for young people. But we think with our super company-based apprenticeship that I have sketched a little bit, we are quite close to the labor market, because of course the planning of this is done in our regional offices, and this is according to the needs of the labor market. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And we also always get the feedback also from the Chamber of Commerce, because they have the latest figures and the feedback from the employers where the professions are most in need. Yeah.
Regarding vacancies, a question from one of our participants is, do you do any web scraping of vacancies? And what are the steps taken to ensure that they're authentic? And do you have agreements with the owners of these vacancies?
Yeah. So several years ago, the vacancies in our databases, we always judge them to be about 40 to 50% of the vacancies that are available on the market. And of course, there were like quality screening for those, whether they comply with the law. And now, since 2 years, we have introduced a new tool. We call them All Jobs. That's basically a search engine for vacancies. And for this, we have an approach that is, on the one side, we cooperate with private portals like Monster or Job Search, or however they are called, and they provide us with their vacancies. And there we have bilateral agreements, and these are, of course, quality insured. On the other hand, we are screening for vacancies, and when you also crawling for vacancies in the internet, and when you look at this job search engine, it's called Alle Jobs. It's on our platform and free for everybody. You can see that those vacancies that we have originally in our register are marked with the AMS logo, and then there are other vacancies which are marked with a globus, basically. And these, when you click on them, you refer the job seeker either to one of these portals or to the vacancy in the internet, so on the web page of a company, for example. So these are specially marked. This is not ours, but they're all together now in our search engine. Why do they cooperate, these private portals? Because they get traffic. So they give us their job vacancies, which is basically the basis of their income. But they get more and more traffic because people are now searching more and more in this one job search database that we provide. And we believe that we have all in all now about 98% or 99% of all vacancies on the Austrian labor market with this approach. That's a very successful IT project that we have implemented just recently.
Interesting. And I think that we have time for one more question, and that is regarding language courses for refugees. What funds are used to finance these language courses? Are there specific grants or programs that support these initiatives?
That's national funds by the governments. Again, these are basically provided either by us, depends whether we get a special budget for these, or by the Austrian Integration Fund, which is funded by the Austrian government to provide their language courses for migrants and refugees. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Julian.
Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you very much, really to Julian. I think you have lots of compliments already in the chat saying thank you so much for this enlightening presentation and very informative, lots of valuable insights. So lots of praises for you. Thank you so much, Julian. This was really great that you took the time to present on behalf of your public employment service today. As always, the questions that haven't been answered today in the chat will be sent out later, and we have the recording, and we will also send you all the documentation later. It will always take some time because we need to make sure that everything is translated into the 3 WAVES languages, with our Spanish, French, and English. So, but you will get it. So just be a little bit patient with us as we need to try, as we will follow up everything correctly and then send it to you. So yes, so again, very much thank you, Julian. So it was really great having you here today, and also a very big thank you also to our community and to everybody that joined today, to Ulf and the interpreters. I really hope that you enjoyed this today, and we would like also to invite you in the end, because we always have a short survey where you can put in your opinion about today's webinar. It's really meaningful to us, since we always try to develop the webinars or to make something different that you would like to have included. So for the summer season, this will be really our last webinar. So we'll be coming back in September, since we have also a little bit of summer break here within WAPES. But don't worry, like I said, we will have new webinars coming up, and I guess my colleague Ulf is posting them right now. So we have coming up in September, the Public Employment Service of South Korea. In October, we have the Public Employment Service of Lithuania presenting, and then in November, Cambodia. And in December, we have the Japanese Labor Ministry also presenting on their behalf. So you see already some of these registration links in the chat. However, the one for Lithuania is not created yet. So please go ahead and look up also the webinar registration on our website for further information, so that you can register as soon as possible. So again, thank you so much to all of you. Thank you so much for making this happen, as we all really develop our services from your contributions. And we all wish you a wonderful day, night, or afternoon ahead of you. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you.